The asphalt of Interstate 95 did not merely reflect heat, it radiated it like a living furnace, sending waves of distortion across the barren Nevada landscape. The air shimmered with violence, turning the distant mountains into watercolor smears against a bleached sky. Inside the obsidian limousine, the temperature held steady at 62 degrees, precise, controlled, lifeless. Lucian Blackthorne sat in the leather cocoon of his mobile sanctuary, one hand resting against the tinted window. His fingers were pale as carved marble, still as death itself. Because that's what he was, what he had been for 1,000 years, death wearing a tailored suit. The sunglasses he wore were custom-made, lenses thick enough to filter out the Nevada sun that pressed against the UV-proof glass like an enemy at the gates. Behind those dark lenses, his eyes were the color of blood and twilight, crimson irises that no human had seen in 3 centuries and lived to speak of it. His hair fell white as winter across his shoulders, not the white of age, but the white of something that had never truly lived. Frost-given form, moonlight made flesh. The humans in his employ called it albinism. They were comfortable with that lie. Lucian was comfortable with their comfort. He adjusted the collar of his shirt, Italian silk, midnight black, worth more than most men earned in a year, and stared out at the endless ribbon of highway. Las Vegas was 6 hours behind him now. A business acquisition, a real estate portfolio that would net him another $17 million by year's end. The money meant nothing. It had meant nothing for the last 2 centuries. He was bored, the kind of boredom that settles into bone marrow and makes a home there. The boredom of a predator who has seen empires crumble, who has tasted every vintage of wine and sorrow the world offers. 4 years ago, he had agreed to a political marriage, an alliance with the Sterling bloodline, sealed through union with Morgana Sterling, a vampire of impeccable lineage and absolutely no warmth. She was beautiful the way a diamond is beautiful, hard, cold, flawless, and utterly without soul. The engagement had been a mistake, but then so many things had been mistakes. Lucian closed his eyes behind his sunglasses, allowing himself one moment of memory, one dangerous indulgence. The night before the engagement announcement, the storm. The ancient wine from his private cellar, a vintage from 1723 that tasted of despair and smoke. He had been drunk, truly drunk, and she had been there, Elena, the maid with amber eyes who hummed while she worked, filling the empty halls of Thorngate Manor with something that sounded dangerously close to life. She had brought him tea, had found him in the library, surrounded by books he could no longer pretend to care about, drowning in wine he could no longer truly taste. She had looked at him not with fear, but with understanding. And then something even more dangerous, compassion. What happened that night was a blur of need and desperation. Her warmth against his eternal cold. Her heartbeat thundering in his ears like a drum calling him back from the edge of nothing. One night, one mistake, one miracle he hadn't known he'd created. 3 days later, Morgana had come screaming through the manor, a diamond ring missing from her collection. Security footage mysteriously corrupted, accusations flying like daggers. Elena, the thief. Elena, the liar. Elena vanished into the night before Lucian could even question her. He had found the ring a week later, fallen behind a dresser. A simple accident. But by then Elena had dissolved into the wind, and Morgana had laughed it off. Lucian had ended their engagement that same night. Some things even a vampire king could not tolerate. Now, 4 years later, he was returning to Thorngate from another meaningless business trip, wondering if anything would ever matter again. That's when he saw it, the anomaly. His driver, Silas, a ghoul bound to his service for 60 years, made a small sound in the front seat. Sir, ahead, there shimmering in the heat like a mirage, stood the skeleton of an old gas station. The pumps were long dead, rusted corpses marking where life had once stopped to refuel. The wooden overhang was rotting, splintered, fighting a losing battle against time and wind. And beneath that meager strip of shadow, huddled against the elements, like refugees from some private war, were two figures, a woman and a child. Lucian's heart, an organ that beat with the slow, tectonic rhythm of continental drift, skipped. Just once. But it was enough. "Stop the car!" The limousine glided to a halt, gravel crunching beneath the tires like breaking bones. Lucian lowered the window exactly 1 inch. The scent hit him instantly. Not sagebrush, not dust, not even the sweet rot of roadkill baking in the sun. It was vanilla, rain on stone. And underneath it all, the sharp metallic tang of exhaustion, laced with terror. It was her, Elena. The realization struck him with physical force. 4 years. 4 years of searching through every database, every surveillance system, every whispered rumor in the underground networks. Gone, like smoke. And here she was, dying under the Nevada sun. Lucian opened the door. The heat was a physical assault, a wall of fire. But he stepped out anyway, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the cracked asphalt. He moved toward her with inhuman grace, fluid, predatory, unavoidable. She didn't look up at first. She was curled around something in her lap, her body a human shield. But as Lucian's shadow fell over her, cutting the glare like a knife, she froze. She knew that silence. The sudden drop in temperature, the feeling of something ancient drawing near. Slowly she lifted her head. Her eyes, once vibrant amber, were now dull and rimmed with red dust. "Mr. Blackthorne," she whispered. Her voice was desert sand scraping stone, ruined, beautiful in its brokenness. "Elena." His voice was a deep baritone that vibrated in the air. "What madness is this?" She pulled the bundle tighter. It was a child. A boy, perhaps 3 or 4 years old, with dark curls plastered to his forehead by sweat. His skin was alarmingly pale, almost translucent. His breathing came in shallow, rapid gasps. He was dying. "Waiting," Elena rasped, her gaze sliding past Lucian to the empty horizon. "Waiting for the bus." Lucian looked down the road which stretched to infinity. Not a single vehicle marred the heat-shimmer distance. "The transit line was decommissioned 2 years ago, Elena. Nothing comes this way anymore." He paused. "Nothing but death." He stepped closer. The child's face became clearer. His lips were cracked and bleeding. His eyelids fluttered but didn't open. "The boy is burning," Lucian stated. "We're fine," Elena lied. Her hands trembled violently. "Please, sir, go. You don't belong in the sun." "And you don't belong in the dirt," Lucian countered. "Get in the car." "I can't." Elena shrank back, terror flashing across her face. But it wasn't terror of him. It was terror of something else. Someone else. "Morgana," she whispered. "She said if I ever came near you again, Morgana Sterling is no longer part of my life." Lucian cut her off, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "She was exiled from my estate 3 years ago. Her threats are as empty as this desert." The boy stirred. A weak, wounded sound escaped his cracked lips. "Mama, thirsty." The sound tore through Lucian's composure like silver through flesh. He moved with blurred speed, returning to the limousine and retrieving a crystal flask of chilled water. He returned and knelt in the dust, ruining his expensive trousers without a second thought. He held the flask out. "Drink, little one." The boy's eyes opened. Time stopped. They were large, impossibly deep, and they were wrong in a way that made Lucian's immortal soul shudder with recognition. They weren't amber like Elena's, they were violet, deep twilight violet, the exact shade that hadn't appeared in the Blackthorne bloodline in 300 years. The exact shade of Lucian's own eyes beneath the crimson overlay. The boy grabbed the flask with desperate hands and drank. Water spilled down his chin, but he didn't care. He drank like a man saved from drowning. "Slowly," Lucian commanded gently, "or you'll make yourself sick." The boy obeyed, slowing to measured sips. Color began to return to his cheeks. His breathing steadied. Elena watched, stunned. She had known Lucian Blackthorne as the distant, brooding master of Thorngate Manor. To see him kneeling in filth, tending to her son, was surreal. Lucian stood, towering over them both. "Elena, look at me. You are miles from civilization. The child is exhibiting signs of severe heat stroke. I am not asking. I am taking you home." "I have no home," she whispered. "Then you will come to mine." It was a decree. "Where is your luggage?" She pointed to a single battered duffel bag. Everything she owned. Lucian lifted it, heartbreakingly light yet heavy with the weight of 2 lives, and handed it to Silas. "Give him to me," Lucian said. Before she could protest, he scooped the boy into his arms. The child was light, fragile as a bird, warm as summer sun against Lucian's cold chest. The boy's heartbeat thrummed against Lucian's ribs, not the steady rhythm of human hearts, but something else, something syncopated. Thump, thump, pause, thump, thump, the rhythm of the night-born, the rhythm of his bloodline. "He's cold," the boy whispered, pressing his fevered head against Lucian's shoulder. "Mama, the man is cold, like ice cream." "It's just the air conditioning, Adrian," Elena said quickly, opening the back door. Adrian. The name settled into Lucian's consciousness like a key into a lock. To the other side, Lucian glanced down at the other side. Lucian glanced down at his hands. They were trembling. For centuries he had touched nothing but cold stone. The weight of that warm, living child had awakened something dormant in his frozen heart, something like hope. The drive to Thorngate Manor wrapped itself in heavy silence. The limousine's interior smelled of cedarwood and ozone. Lucian sat opposite Elena and Adrian, watching them through his sunglasses. Elena used a damp cloth to wipe Adrian's face, murmuring soft words. The boy had fallen into a light doze. Lucian remembered Elena's quiet grace from 4 years ago, the way she moved through Thorngate like a ghost, never demanding attention, never flinching at the odd hours. The heavy curtains drawn during the day, the lack of mirrors, the strange dietary requirements. She had never asked questions. She had simply hummed her melodies and done her work. And then the accusation, the ring, Morgana's theatrics, Elena's tears, gone before dawn. "Why did you run, Elena?" The question came out softer than he intended. "I would have listened." Elena didn't look up from her son. "I was a maid, Mr. Blackthorne. She was your fiancée, a lady of high standing. Who would the police believe? She said she'd have me arrested. She said she'd make sure I rotted in prison." "You risked arrest rather than trust me?" "I was pregnant." The words hung in the air like smoke. Lucian went very still, not even breathing, just existence, frozen in a single moment. "I didn't know it then," Elena continued, her voice trembling. "Not for sure, but I felt it. Something was different. I couldn't have my baby born in prison." Lucian looked at the boy. Adrian, 4 years old, 9 months of pregnancy, 4 years of life. 4 years and 9 months ago, there had been a storm. Wine. Desperation. Her hands in his hair. One night. "And the father?" Lucian asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Where is the man who should be shielding you from this?" Elena went rigid. "He's unavailable. Dead to us." "Dead?" Lucian's voice hardened. "Dead to us," she repeated, finally looking at him. "He's a man of a different world, Mr. Blackthorne. A powerful man. He doesn't know Adrian exists, and he never can." "Why, is he a criminal? A monster?" Elena's laugh was bitter. "No, he's a good man, I think, but we are beneath him. We would only be a stain on his reputation. A man who leaves his blood to rot in the desert has no reputation worth saving," Lucian said coldly. The car began its ascent into the foothills. The road wound upward, climbing toward the cliff where Thorngate Manor perched like a Gothic crown. The estate appeared through the haze, black stone and glass sprawling across the precipice. "We can't stay here, sir," Elena said as the iron gates loomed. "Not at the main house. Perhaps the gardener's shed. I can work. You will do no such thing. You are my guest." He paused, his gaze drifting to Adrian. "You need rest. You need safety. and I have an abundance of both. The limousine halted in the circular driveway. Silas opened the door. The entry into Thorngate Manor was overwhelming. Elena had only ever used the service entrance. She had never walked through the grand double doors as a guest. The foyer was a cavern of marble and shadow. A chandelier hung overhead like frozen rain, crystal droplets catching dim light and scattering it across black stone. The household staff lined up automatically. Lucian dismissed them with a wave. "Prepare the Azure Suite," he commanded. Silas paused. "The Azure Suite, sir? That's the family wing." Lucian turned. Even through his sunglasses, the weight of his stare was palpable. "Did I stutter, Silas?" "No, sir. Immediately." Lucian led them up the grand staircase. Elena walked slowly, carrying Adrian. Her worn sneakers squeaked on the polished floor. The Azure Suite was larger than any apartment she had ever lived in, floor-to-ceiling windows covered by velvet drapes, a four-poster bed the size of a boat, a bathroom that smelled of lavender and eucalyptus. "Put him down," Lucian said gently. Elena laid Adrian on the silk coverlet. The boy sighed, curling into the softness. "Food is coming. And clothes. I'll have a tailor here in the morning. Mr. Blackthorne, Elena's voice broke. Tears welled. "I'm dirty. I look like a beggar. You shouldn't have us here." "Elena." Lucian stepped closer. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face, then pulled back. "Dirt washes off. Poverty is circumstance, not character. You kept this boy alive for 4 years, alone. That makes you royalty in my eyes." He turned to leave, needing distance before his control slipped. The scent of her blood was overwhelming, sweet, inviting, frantically alive. "Lucian," he stopped. She had used his first name. "Thank you." He nodded once and vanished into the hallway. Elena wasted no time. She stripped Adrian of his dusty clothes and carried him to the bathroom. The marble tub was deep. She filled it with warm water and lowered him in gently. Adrian woke groggy, blinking at the bubbles. A slow smile spread across his face. "Are we princes now, Mama?" "Just for tonight, baby," Elena whispered, kissing his damp forehead. But as she dried him off and dressed him in a soft robe, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. She was back in the lion's den, not because Lucian was cruel, but because of the secret she carried. A secret currently sleeping in a bed too large for his small body. A secret with twilight eyes and a heartbeat that drummed to a rhythm no human child should have. Night had fully fallen when Lucian returned. He had changed into fresh clothes, a charcoal shirt and dark trousers. He carried a tray himself, dismissing the staff. On it were bowls of steaming soup, warm bread, and milk. He found Elena by the window, peering through a crack in the curtains at the moonlit valley. Adrian was sitting up in bed, looking remarkably better. His eyes were bright and curious. "Food," Lucian announced. Adrian's face lit up. "I'm hungry, Mr. Iceman." "Adrian," Elena scolded gently. Lucian chuckled, a sound like cracking ice, rusty from disuse. "It's a fair name. I am cold." He placed the tray on the bed. Adrian ate with enthusiasm, dunking bread into soup. Lucian sat in a wingback chair in the corner, shrouded in shadow, watching them. This simple domestic scene was more than he had experienced in centuries. "Elena," he said once Adrian's hunger was satisfied, "we must speak of the past." Elena put down her spoon slowly. "I told you. Morgana accused me. I ran. Not the theft. The boy." The room went deadly silent. "What about him?" Elena's voice trembled. Lucian leaned forward. "He is sensitive to sunlight, abnormally pale. His eyes are violet, a color that does not exist in nature, a color found only in the Blackthorne bloodline." Elena stood, placing herself between Lucian and the bed. "He is my son." "Is he mine?" The question was a whisper, but it carried the weight of 1,000 years. Elena closed her eyes. She remembered that night, the storm hammering at the windows. Lucian drunk on ancient wine and grief. She had brought him tea, found him shattered. He had looked at her not as a maid, but as a lifeline. One night, one mistake, one miracle. "He doesn't know," Elena deflected weakly. "He's just a boy." "Do not lie to me." Lucian stood, moving into the light. His eyes glowed faintly behind his glasses, a crimson luminescence that looked mournful. "I can hear his heart, Elena. It beats differently. The rhythm of the night-born." "He's sick," Elena cried. "The doctors say he has a heart condition. They say that because they do not understand what he is. He's not sick, Elena. He's Dhampir, half human, half vampire." He paused, looking at the boy, watching them with fearless fascination. "And if you know what I am, then you know why you ran. If Morgana knew, if the council knew, a half-breed child—" "They call them abominations," Elena whispered, tears streaming. "They would kill him." "They would have to crawl over my pile of ashes to touch a single hair on his head," Lucian vowed. His voice vibrated with terrifying power. "Are you my daddy?" The small voice cut through the tension like a silver blade. Adrian was kneeling on the bed holding bread. He wasn't looking at Elena. His twilight gaze was fixed on Lucian with intensity that made the ancient vampire's breath catch. Lucian froze. He looked at the boy, his heir, his blood, his unintended legacy. For centuries, he had believed his line would end with him. The undead could not create life, or so the legend said. But life, it seemed, was more stubborn than death. Lucian walked slowly to the bed. He knelt, bringing himself level with Adrian. He looked into those impossible eyes, his own eyes, staring back from a face that held all of Elena's softness. Lucian started. His voice failed him. For the first time in 1,000 years, he had no words. Adrian reached out. Small fingers extended toward Lucian's face. Lucian didn't flinch. The boy placed his warm hand against Lucian's cold cheek. "You're not cold anymore," Adrian whispered. Lucian's eyes closed. A single tear escaped, red as blood, and rolled down his pale cheek. "No," Lucian whispered hoarsely. "Not anymore." He looked up at Elena, who was weeping silently. "We have much to discuss," Lucian said, his voice regaining strength. "But know this, Elena, both of you. You are not guests here. You are home." The word hung in the air. Home. A concept Lucian had not experienced in centuries. Adrian smiled. The smile of a child who had never known true safety but recognized it instinctively when it arrived. And in that moment, Lucian Blackthorne felt his frozen heart crack open, not with pain, but with something far more dangerous, love. 6 weeks transformed Thorngate Manor in ways that stone and mortar could never achieve. The change was not in the architecture. The Gothic spires still pierced the Nevada sky. The gargoyles still guarded their posts. The hallways still stretched in shadowed elegance. But the silence had a different quality now. It was no longer the silence of a tomb. It was the silence of held breath before laughter. Life had returned to Thorngate, and with it, purpose. The first week had been chaos disguised as domesticity. Elena had needed everything: clothes, toiletries, books for Adrian, toys, medical supplies for the boy's sensitive skin. Lucian had summoned merchants to the manor. The grand library had been temporarily transformed into a boutique, racks of clothing wheeled in by nervous salespeople who sensed something otherworldly about their customer. Elena had been overwhelmed, checking price tags out of habit. "This is too much," she had whispered, holding up a simple cotton dress. "It is not enough," Lucian had replied. "You are the mother of my son. You will want for nothing, ever again." But the real transformation was happening in quieter moments, like now. Lucian stood in the underground training hall, a space he had built 2 centuries ago for practicing combat. The ceiling was vaulted stone. The floor was reinforced concrete. Weapons lined the walls, and in the center, Adrian ran. "Faster!" Lucian called out. The boy was a blur, not quite the speed of a full vampire, but far beyond any human child. His small legs pumped, dark curls streaming behind him as he raced from one end to the other. He was laughing, pure, unfiltered joy. Lucian crouched at the far end, arms open. Adrian crashed into him at full speed. Lucian caught him effortlessly, spinning him until the boy was dizzy. "Did you see, Daddy? Did you see how fast I was?" "Daddy." The word still struck Lucian like a physical blow every time. "I saw," Lucian said, smoothing Adrian's hair. "You were magnificent. Faster than lightning." "Faster than you?" Lucian smiled. "Not yet. But someday you'll leave me in the dust." Adrian beamed, wrapping his arms around Lucian's neck and squeezing. The embrace was warm, trusting, absolute. They trained for another 20 minutes. Adrian's abilities were developing rapidly. The boy could move objects with his mind now, small things, toys and books, though the effort exhausted him quickly. He was stronger than human children, faster, his senses were sharper. He could hear conversations happening 3 rooms away, could smell rain coming hours before clouds appeared. But he was still fragile, still young, still learning to navigate a world that would not understand what he was. Upstairs, Elena sat at the desk in the Azure suite, her laptop open to an online university portal. She was finishing the degree she had abandoned years ago. Literature, a dream she thought had died. But Lucian had encouraged her, had paid tuition without blinking, had arranged for tutors when she struggled. "You are not my maid," he had said firmly. "You are Adrian's mother, my partner. You deserve every opportunity." Now she moved through the manor not as a servant, but as its heart. The staff treated her with careful respect, calling her Miss Hartwell, sometimes even Madam. Elena looked up as the door opened. Lucian entered, carrying Adrian in his arms. The boy was half asleep, his head resting on Lucian's shoulder. "He pushed himself too hard," Lucian said softly. "I tried to stop him, but he has your stubbornness." Elena smiled. "He has your pride." A dangerous combination. Lucian laid Adrian on the bed, pulling a blanket over him. The boy murmured something incoherent and curled into the pillows. For a moment they stood together watching him sleep. "Elena," Lucian said quietly, "there is something I need to show you." He led her down the hallway to his private study, a room she had never been permitted to enter. The study was magnificent, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with volumes in languages both living and dead. A massive desk dominated the center. But what caught Elena's attention was the painting above the fireplace. It showed 3 figures on a balcony under moonlight. A man with white hair and crimson eyes, a woman with amber eyes and dark hair, and a small boy between them holding their hands. A family. "When did you—" Elena's voice broke. "Adrian painted me a picture 3 weeks ago," Lucian said. 3 stick figures holding hands. He labeled them Mama, Daddy, and me. I had it recreated. Adrian was laughing, captured mid-joy. Adrian was laughing, captured mid-joy. "I hung it here because this is where I spend most of my time. My office, my sanctuary. And I wanted to see you, both of you, every day, to remind myself that this is real." Elena turned to face him. "Lucian, why are you doing all this? You owe us nothing." That night was the most important night of my existence," Lucian interrupted, "and I have spent 4 years drowning in guilt for not protecting you, for not finding you." He reached into his pocket. When he opened his hand, a diamond ring lay in his palm. Elena's breath caught. It was the ring, the one Morgana had accused her of stealing. "I found this ring 1 week after you disappeared," Lucian said. "It had fallen behind the dresser, a simple accident, no theft, no crime, just carelessness." Elena stared at the ring, vision blurring. "I confronted Morgana that same night. She laughed, said it didn't matter, that you were just a servant, replaceable." Lucian's voice dropped to something dark. "I ended our engagement in that moment, exiled her from my home and my life." He stepped closer. "But the damage was done. You were gone, and I couldn't find you. I searched, Elena. For 4 years I searched every database, every city. You had vanished like smoke, and I blame myself every single day." "Lucian, let me finish." He took her hand gently. "I have lived for 1,000 years. I have accumulated wealth beyond measure, power, influence. None of it meant anything. I was a king of shadows, ruling over nothing that mattered. He looked into her eyes. And then I stopped on a highway. And I found you, found him, found a reason to exist beyond simply enduring. He lowered himself to one knee. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. I am not a good man, Elena. I am a monster pretending at humanity. But you saw something in me worth saving 4 years ago, and Adrian sees a father worth loving now. His voice cracked. Marry me. Let me make this official. Let me bind our lives so completely that no force in heaven or hell can ever separate us again. He held up the ring. This ring destroyed your life once. Let me use it to build our life together now. Elena was crying, full, heaving sobs. She dropped to her knees in front of him, framing his face with her hands. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. And then she kissed him. Not the desperate kiss of 4 years ago, but something new. Something built on foundation instead of fracture. A promise. When they pulled apart, Lucian rested his forehead against hers. I will protect you both. Whatever comes, whoever threatens. I will burn the world to ash before I let anyone hurt you again. Elena believed him. The peace lasted 3 more weeks. Adrian's abilities were growing, and with them, complications. The boy had become increasingly sensitive to sunlight. Even indirect light filtering through curtains made his skin prickle. Direct exposure caused angry red welts. Lucian had consulted ancient texts. Dhampir children were rare. Most were discovered and destroyed before their first year. The few references suggested that light sensitivity increased until puberty. Adrian would never walk freely in daylight. Not completely. It was a bitter realization. Lucian had commissioned an indoor play area, a Gothic wonderland in the East Wing, complete with climbing structures and a ball pit filled with black and silver spheres. Adrian loved it. But there was sadness in his eyes sometimes, when he watched the sun set through windows, when he saw other children playing in parks on security monitors. Why can't I go outside when it's bright, Daddy? He had asked one afternoon. Lucian had knelt beside him, choosing words carefully. Because you are special, Adrian. You have gifts that other children don't have. Speed, strength, the ability to move things with your mind. But those gifts come with a price. The sun is too strong for you. Like it hurts you? Yes, like it hurts me. Adrian had thought about this for a moment, then smiled. That's okay. I like the nighttime better anyway. The stars are prettier than the sun. Lucian had pulled his son into a fierce embrace, heart aching with pride and sorrow in equal measure. 2 weeks after the engagement, Silas requested a private audience. Lucian found him in the garage, methodically cleaning the limousine. The ghoul's movements were precise, almost mechanical. He had served Lucian for 60 years without complaint. What troubles you, old friend? Lucian asked. Silas stopped polishing. His shoulders tensed. I need to confess something, sir. Something that may cost me my position, my life. He turned to face Lucian. I have been feeding information to Morgana Sterling. Lucian went very still. Explain. She approached me 8 weeks ago. Before you found Elena and the boy, she had information about my sister, my human sister living in Boston, Margaret Bradford. Silas's voice was tight with shame. She threatened to expose her to dangerous elements, unless I provided updates on your activities. You betrayed me. I gave her nothing that mattered, Silas said quickly. I confirmed you were alone, that the manor was quiet, generic information, but then you brought them home. Elena, Adrian, and she demanded details. What did you tell her? I told her you had taken in a woman and child, charity cases from Las Vegas, nothing more. Silas's voice dropped. I have been lying to her for 6 weeks, sir, telling her the woman is a distant cousin, that the child is sickly but human. I have protected them. Why? Silas's weathered face softened. Because I have watched you for 60 years, sir. I have seen you move through existence like a ghost. And in 6 weeks, that boy has made you laugh more than I've heard in 6 decades. He calls you Daddy, and you look at him like he hung the moon." The ghoul's voice broke. "I could not be the one to destroy that. Even to save my sister I could not. So I lied, and I will accept whatever punishment you deem fit." Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then he placed his hand on Silas's shoulder. "Your sister in Boston, Margaret Bradford. I will send security to her tonight. She will be relocated to a safe house under my protection. Morgana's threats end now." Lucian's grip tightened. "You made a choice to protect my son over your own interests. That is loyalty of the highest order." Silas looked stunned. "Sir, I don't— You are family now, and I protect family, but I need to know everything. What does Morgana suspect? She knows something is wrong with my reports. They're too vague." Silas's expression darkened. "I received a message yesterday. She's sending someone to verify. 2 envoys. They will arrive within the week." Lucian nodded slowly. "Then we prepare." 3 days later, at 3 in the morning, the alarm screamed. Lucian was in his study when every sensor in the manor's perimeter triggered simultaneously. "Breach," Silas said, his hand on the silver dagger at his belt. "Multiple points. Professional." Lucian was moving before the sentence ended. He flew up the stairs to the azure suite. Elena was already awake, standing by Adrian's bed with a silver letter opener in her hand. Pathetically inadequate, but her stance was fierce. "Take him to the panic room," Lucian commanded. "Now." "What's happening?" "Morgana's envoys have arrived early, and they're not here to verify. They're here to kill." Adrian sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Daddy?" Lucian crossed to the bed in 2 strides. He cupped his son's face. "Listen to me, Adrian. Bad people are coming, but I need you to be very brave. Can you do that?" The boy nodded, fear and trust warring in those impossible eyes. "Go with your mother. Stay in the special room we showed you, the one with the thick door. Stay there until I come get you. Do not come out for anyone else. Not even Silas, only me, understand?" "Okay, Daddy." Lucian kissed his forehead, then turned to Elena. "The panic room has weapons, silver stakes, holy water. Use them if you must." Elena nodded, scooping Adrian into her arms. As they disappeared through the hidden door, Lucian turned to face the hallway. His eyes blazed crimson in the darkness. He descended the grand staircase like a shadow-given form. Silas was in the foyer, facing the main doors. They didn't bother with doors. They came through the windows. 2 figures in black tactical gear, moving with inhuman speed. Vampires, full-bloods, enforcers trained in assassination. The first was female, face covered by a mask. She carried twin short swords, silver-edged. The second was male, larger, wielding a crossbow loaded with wooden bolts. "Lord Blackthorn," the female said, "by order of Lady Sterling, we are here to verify reports of aberration within your household. You are trespassing. Leave now, and I will not destroy you. We have authority from the Sterling line to— The Sterling line has no authority in my domain. This is the last warning you will receive." The male raised his crossbow. Silas moved, diving left, as the bolt whistled past and embedded itself in mahogany paneling. Lucian was faster. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, catching the female's wrist mid-swing. Her bones cracked. She screamed and tried to twist away. Lucian yanked her forward, his other hand going to her throat. "You dare attack me in my own home?" The male assassin fired again. The bolt punched through Lucian's shoulder. Pain exploded. Wood in vampire flesh was agony, but Lucian didn't let go. He threw the female across the foyer. She hit the far wall hard enough to crack stone. Silas tackled the male, driving him to the ground. They grappled in a blur. Lucian wrenched the bolt from his shoulder. Black blood welled, hissing as it hit marble. The female was getting up, fast. She dropped her swords and pulled a silver dagger. Lucian met her charge. They collided in a flurry of strikes. She was good, trained. But Lucian was 1,000 years old. He had been fighting before her ancestors were born. He caught her wrist. This time he didn't hesitate. He drove his fist through her chest, shattering her ribcage. "You came into my home. You threatened my family. This is mercy." He crushed her heart. She crumbled to ash. Across the foyer, Silas was bleeding. The male assassin had him pinned, fangs descending. Lucian moved like lightning. He grabbed the assassin by the neck and tore him off Silas. "Who sent you?" Lucian demanded, slamming the vampire against the wall. The assassin spit blood. "Sterling, Morgana Sterling. She knows. She knows about the half-breed." "How?" "Photographs. Surveillance. She's been watching for weeks. She's coming. With the council. They're all ready." Lucian didn't let him finish. He drove his hand through the vampire's chest and ripped out his heart. More ash. Silence fell. Just Lucian's ragged breathing and Silas's labored gasps. "Are you hurt?" Lucian asked. "I'll heal." As if summoned, a sound echoed through the manor, a scream, not of pain, of power. A sonic wave that shattered every window in the foyer, that made the chandelier swing wildly, that drove both Lucian and Silas to their knees. Adrian. Lucian was up and running. He flew through the manor, following the sound. He found the panic room door blown off its hinges. Inside, Elena was on the floor, covering her ears, and Adrian stood in the center, his small body rigid, his eyes blazing with otherworldly light. Objects floated around him, books, toys, furniture, all suspended in midair, orbiting the boy like planets around a sun. "Adrian!" The boy's head snapped toward Lucian. Tears streamed down his face. "I heard fighting. I heard you hurt. I wanted to help." His voice was distorted, layered with something ancient. Lucian stepped into the room slowly, hands raised. "Adrian, son, look at me. I'm okay. I'm not hurt. There was blood. I smelled it. Your blood. I heal, remember? Just like you heal. But I need you to breathe, to let go. You're scaring your mother." Adrian looked at Elena, and horror crossed his young face. The floating objects began to drop, clattering to the floor. "Mama?" Elena pushed herself up, forcing a smile through fear. "I'm okay, baby. Just surprised." Adrian ran to her. She caught him in a fierce embrace. The boy sobbed into her shoulder. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to protect you." Lucian knelt beside them, wrapping his arms around them both. "You are not a monster. Do you hear me, Adrian? You felt fear. You wanted to protect your family. That's what warriors do. That's what kings do. But I broke things. I scared Mama. You did, and you will learn to control it. I will teach you, but your heart was in the right place." Lucian held his son's gaze. "You are not a monster. Never forget that." They stayed like that for a long time, a family huddled together in wreckage, in darkness, protected, together. But outside Thorngate Manor, in the desert night, a black sedan sat parked on a distant ridge, and in that sedan, Morgana Sterling lowered her binoculars. She had seen enough. She pulled out her phone and dialed. "Marcus, it's confirmed. Lucian Blackthorne has sired a Dampier, a male child, approximately 4 years old, and he's awakening." A pause. "Yes, I'll gather the evidence. We convene the council within the week." She hung up and smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Enjoy your peace while it lasts, Lucian. I'm coming for everything you love." The sedan drove away, leaving tire tracks in the dust. Inside Thorngate, Lucian held his family close, knowing the storm had only just begun. Dawn had never looked so threatening. Lucian stood on the balcony of the Azure Suite, watching the eastern sky bleed from black to deep purple. The sun would rise in 20 minutes. He would retreat indoors before then, as he always did. But this morning, he wanted to watch the enemy approach in all its burning glory. Because if Morgana was gathering forces, she would come during daylight, when he was weakest, when his movements were restricted, when the sun itself became her ally. Behind him, Elena slept fitfully. Adrian curled against her side. The boy's nightmares had been worse since the attack. He woke crying, convinced the bad people had hurt his father. Lucian had spent hours soothing him, promising safety, lying with practiced skill. Because the truth was simple and terrible, the real war hadn't started yet. The assassins had been a test, and Lucian had passed too well. By destroying them so thoroughly, he had proven what Morgana suspected. He had something worth protecting. That made him vulnerable, and vulnerability was a weapon she would use without mercy. Silas appeared in the doorway. "The perimeter is secure, sir. I've activated every sensor within a 2-mile radius." "Good. And the staff?" "I've sent them away, told them you're conducting private business, paid them triple their salary." Silas paused. Only Harris remained, the groundskeeper. He refused to leave. "Harris has been with me for 40 years. He knows what I am. He said he's too old to run, and he'd rather die defending a good man than flee like a coward." Lucian finally turned. "We may take him up on that offer. How long do we have?" "Morgana is nothing if not theatrical. She'll gather her forces, make it official. She'll want witnesses." The sky was lightening. Lucian retreated into the suite, closing the heavy curtains. 3 days? Perhaps 4. She'll come at high noon when the sun is strongest. Then we have time to run. No. The word was final. "I will not spend eternity hiding my son, teaching him to fear shadows, to live like a fugitive. This is our home, and we will defend it." The next 72 hours were a controlled descent into paranoia. Lucian fortified Thorngate like a medieval fortress. Windows were reinforced with steel shutters, doors replaced with models that could withstand battering rams. The perimeter was wired with sensors, cameras, and defensive measures acquired over centuries. UV floodlights, capable of producing artificial sunlight intense enough to reduce a vampire to ash in seconds. Lucian had them installed in every major corridor. "You'll be trapped too," Silas pointed out. "A trap that catches both predator and prey is still a trap worth setting. Morgana doesn't know about these. They'll be a surprise." Elena watched the preparations with growing dread. She spent her days keeping Adrian occupied, reading to him, playing quiet games. But at night, when the boy finally slept, she would find Lucian and simply hold him. "I'm frightened," she admitted on the second night. "So am I," Lucian said quietly. She pulled back, surprised. "You?" "I have lived 1,000 years, Elena. I have faced armies, inquisitions, hunters, but I faced them alone. I had nothing to lose but my own existence." He cupped her face. "Now I have everything to lose. You, Adrian, this life we're building, that terrifies me more than any enemy ever could." "Then run with us. Please, we can disappear and teach our son that the world is a place where he must always hide, that his very existence is shameful. No, I will not curse him with that. If we run now, we run forever." Elena was quiet. Then she straightened, her eyes hardening with resolve. "Then teach me to fight." "Elena, you heard me. I held a letter opener against trained assassins. I was useless. But I won't be helpless when they come for my son. Teach me to kill." Lucian saw the fierce determination in her eyes, the mother bear protecting her cub. She would die for that boy, but he would teach her to kill instead. They spent the next 2 nights in the training hall. Lucian showed her the basics: how to hold a blade, where to strike, the vulnerable points on a vampire's body: throat, heart, major arteries. "Silver wounds us," he explained, demonstrating on himself with a small blade. The cut on his palm smoked and hissed. But wood through the heart kills, decapitation kills, fire kills, sunlight kills. Elena practiced on training dummies, her movements clumsy at first, then gaining deadly efficiency. "Pretend it's Morgana," Lucian suggested. Elena's next strike nearly severed the dummy's head. On the 3rd night, Adrian appeared in the doorway. He was supposed to be asleep, but his twilight eyes were wide and alert. "I want to learn too." "Adrian, go back to—" Elena started. "No." The boy's voice was firm. "Bad people are coming for us. I need to be able to fight." Lucian knelt in front of his son. "You are 4 years old, Adrian. Your job is to stay safe, to let your mother and me protect you. But I have powers. I felt them. When the bad men came, I can help. Your powers are dangerous to yourself, to us. You could hurt someone you love by accident. Then teach me not to." Adrian's eyes filled with desperate tears. "Please, Daddy, I don't want to be scared. I don't want to hide. Teach me to be strong like you." Lucian looked at Elena. She nodded slowly. "Very well, but you must promise to do exactly as I say. Control is everything. Understand?" Adrian nodded vigorously. They spent an hour working with Adrian's telekinesis, teaching him to focus, to move objects with precision rather than emotional outbursts. A toy car, a ball, a book. The boy was a quick study. His control improved dramatically. "Excellent," Lucian praised. "Now the most important lesson. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing." Adrian frowned. "Nothing? Violence should always be the last resort, not the first. A true king knows when to fight and when to show mercy." Lucian placed his hand on Adrian's shoulder. "Promise me something. If the bad people come, you will not attack unless there is no other choice. Promise me you will try peace first." "I promise, Daddy." They sealed it with an embrace. That night, as Lucian tucked Adrian into bed, the boy asked a question that pierced him like silver. "Daddy, are we going to die?" Lucian could have lied, should have lied, but he respected his son too much for that. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I promise you this. Whatever happens, we face it together, as a family." Adrian considered this, then smiled. "Okay, I'm not scared when I'm with you." Lucian kissed his forehead and left before the boy could see the blood tears threatening to fall. They came on the fourth day at precisely noon. The sensors screamed first. Vehicles approaching, multiple heat signatures. Lucian was in his study when the alarm sounded. He activated the intercom. "Elena, take Adrian to the panic room, now!" Her voice crackled back. "We're going." Lucian moved to the window and peered through a crack in the curtains. The sunlight was brutal, even filtered. It made his eyes water. But he could see them clearly. 5 black SUVs rolling up the driveway like a funeral procession. They stopped in the circular courtyard, forming a perfect semicircle. Doors opened. Morgana Sterling stepped out first. She wore white, a deliberate insult, the color of purity. Her platinum hair was styled in an elaborate updo. She looked like a queen attending a garden party. Behind her came the enforcers. Lucian counted 12, all vampire, all armed with medieval weapons updated with modern materials, silver swords, wooden stakes with titanium tips, crossbows. And behind them came 20 additional soldiers, human mercenaries, hired guns who probably thought they were attacking a drug lord. They had no idea. Morgana walked to the center of the courtyard and looked up at the manor. She raised a bullhorn. "Lucian Blackthorn, by order of the Elder Council, you are commanded to surrender the aberration in your custody for examination and judgment." Silence. "You have 1 hour to comply. Failure to do so will be considered an act of rebellion. The penalty is final death." Lucian moved away from the window. He checked the UV floodlight controls one last time, tested the panic button that would seal the Azure suite with steel plates. Everything was ready. He descended to the grand hall where Silas waited, armed with a shotgun loaded with silver buckshot. 1 hour, Silas said. "She won't wait an hour. She's playing to an audience. She'll give me 15 minutes. Then she'll attack to prove her authority." "What's the plan?" "Survive. Protect the family. Make her understand that taking my son will cost more than she's willing to pay." 14 minutes later, the main doors exploded inward. Not with battering rams, with pure telekinetic force. One of the enforcers was a mentalist. The heavy oak doors flew off their hinges, tumbling through the foyer like leaves. Sunlight spilled in, a lance of burning gold that made Lucian stagger back. The enforcers poured through the breach, moving with inhuman coordination. But they stopped at the threshold of the grand hall, because Lucian stood there, arms crossed, crimson eyes blazing. And behind him, the shadows seemed to writhe with life. "No further," Lucian said quietly. Morgana stepped through the ruined entrance, careful to avoid direct sunlight. She looked around with theatrical disgust. "How you've let this place decay, Lucian. I remember when Thorngate was magnificent. Now it's just a mausoleum for your delusions." "State your business and leave, Morgana." "Business?" She laughed. A cruel, bright sound. "This isn't business, darling, this is justice. You have violated the most sacred law. You have bred with cattle, produced an abomination, and now you must answer for it. Adrian is my son. He is under my protection. You have no authority here. I have the authority of the Elder Council." Morgana produced a scroll, unfurling it with a flourish, signed by Marcus Thorne himself. "You are ordered to surrender the Dampier child. If found viable, he may be allowed to live under strict supervision. If not—" She let the implication hang. "The Council has no jurisdiction over my bloodline. I am a sovereign lord. Adrian is my acknowledged heir. He is untouchable." "He is an aberration," Morgana shrieked, her composure cracking. "He is proof of your weakness, your pathetic attachment to that human horror." Silas raised his shotgun. "Watch your tongue." Morgana's eyes flicked to the ghoul. "Still clinging to your pet. How quaint." She turned back to Lucian. "I'm giving you one final chance. Surrender the boy, now, and I will make his end quick." Then you die with him." Morgana raised her hand. The enforcers charged. Lucian moved like lightning made flesh. He met the first enforcer in the center of the hall, catching the vampire's silver sword with his bare hand. The metal seared his palm, smoke rising. He didn't care. He twisted the blade, snapping it at the hilt, and drove the broken end through the enforcer's chest. Ash exploded. Silas fired. The shotgun roared, silver buckshot shredding two enforcers who clustered together. They screamed and fell, bodies smoking. The mentalist enforcer raised his hands. Invisible force slammed into Lucian, driving him back. The chandelier above began to shake, crystal drops chiming. "Bring it down," Morgana commanded. The mentalist concentrated. The chandelier tore free with a shriek of tortured metal. It fell. Lucian rolled. The massive fixture crashed where he'd stood, crystal shattering. But the mentalist's concentration was broken. Lucian surged forward, grabbed the vampire by the throat, and slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack stone. "Party tricks," Lucian snarled, and crushed the mentalist's windpipe. More ash. The battle descended into chaos. Enforcers and mercenaries flooded the hall. Gunfire echoed. Silver blades flashed. Silas fought with desperate skill, his shotgun barking death. Lucian was a blur of violence. 500 years of combat experience distilled into pure brutality. He used their weapons against them, their numbers against them, their arrogance against them. But there were too many. A wooden bolt caught him in the side. Pain exploded. He staggered. Two enforcers pressed the advantage, driving him back. Then Elena appeared. She came from the servants' stairway, moving silently, a silver dagger in each hand. She had disobeyed his command. She drove both daggers into the backs of the enforcers' necks. Severed spines. They dropped like puppets. "I told you to stay with Adrian," Lucian roared. "Adrian is safe. You're not." She pulled the daggers free, blood dripping. Her hands shook, but her eyes were hard. "I'm not hiding while they kill you." A mercenary raised his rifle toward Elena. Lucian's vision went red. He crossed the distance in a blur, tore the rifle from the man's hands, and used it as a club. Bone crunched. The mercenary fell. The UV floodlights activated. Silas had reached the control panel. Artificial sunlight flooded the grand hall in searing waves. Vampires shrieked, their skin blistering. They fled toward the foyer, toward shadows, toward any refuge. But the sunlight caught 3 of them. They ignited like matches, screaming as they burned. Lucian felt the light like knives on his skin, but he had prepared. Heavy clothes, gloves, high collar. The light hurt, but it wouldn't kill him immediately. Morgana had retreated to the foyer's shadows. Her face was twisted with fury. "Enough! Fall back! Regroup!" The surviving enforcers and mercenaries fled. Only 6 enforcers remained, a dozen mercenaries, and Morgana. Lucian stood in the center of the grand hall, smoking from UV exposure, bleeding from a dozen wounds, but unbowed. "Is that all you have?" he called out. "Is this the best the mighty Sterling line can offer?" Morgana's eyes narrowed. "You want more, Lucian? I'll give you more. She pulled a radio from her belt, spoke 2 words. Bring them. The SUVs outside opened again, and this time what emerged made Lucian's blood run cold. Hunters, real hunters, not mercenaries. These were men and women who had spent their lives studying vampires, who knew the weaknesses, the tactics, who had destroyed entire covens with methodical precision. They wore silver-threaded armor, carried UV grenades, holy water sprayers, flamethrowers. They had come to burn Thorngate to the ground. "Last chance," Morgana said sweetly. "Give me the boy, or we level this entire manor with you inside it." Lucian was calculating. The UV lights were exhausted. The hunters were fresh, well armed, and he was wounded, tired. They would lose unless— "Stop!" The small voice cut through the tension like a knife. Everyone turned. Adrian stood at the top of the grand staircase. He wore his pajamas. His dark curls were messy from sleep. His twilight eyes were wide with fear, but he stood straight, chin up, facing an army. "Adrian, no!" Elena screamed. But the boy was already walking down the stairs, slowly, 1 step at a time. "Don't hurt my daddy," Adrian said. His voice was small, childish. "Please don't hurt him." Morgana's smile was vicious. "There you are, the little aberration. Come here, child. Let me see you properly." Adrian continued down. Lucian wanted to stop him, wanted to snatch him up and run, but he was paralyzed, watching his son walk toward danger with courage that broke his heart. Adrian reached the bottom. He walked past Lucian, past Elena, into the center of the grand hall. He stood beneath the destroyed chandelier, crystal crunching under his small feet. "I'm the one you want," Adrian said. "I'll go with you. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't hurt my family." "Adrian, no." Lucian's voice was raw. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do, Daddy." Adrian looked back at him, tears streaming. "You taught me. Sometimes being strong means protecting people, even if it hurts." Morgana approached slowly, savoring victory. How noble. The mongrel has a spine. Marcus will be pleased. She reached for Adrian. The boy didn't flinch. But as her hand neared his shoulder, Adrian did something unexpected. He opened his arms, not to embrace, but to offer. "I forgive you," Adrian whispered. Morgana froze. "What?" "You're mean because you're sad. Daddy told me. He said you can't have babies, and that makes you angry at people who can." Adrian's gaze met hers. "But it's not my fault, and it's not Daddy's fault. And being mean won't make you happy." "Shut up," Morgana hissed. "I'm sorry you're sad," Adrian continued. "I'm sorry you hurt so much that you have to hurt other people." "I said shut up!" But Adrian kept talking, and as he spoke, something began to happen. Light. Not UV light, not artificial illumination, soft, warm radiance emanating from the boy's chest, from his heart. It spread outward in gentle waves, filling the hall with golden glow. The hunters stepped back, confused. The enforcers shielded their eyes. Morgana tried to move away but found herself frozen. The light was touching her. Not burning, not destroying, healing. It found every crack in her armor, every wound in her soul, every moment of rejection and loneliness and rage that had made her into this creature of spite. And it offered forgiveness. She felt it all. Every child she had mourned never having, every hope crushed by her barren curse, every night spent watching others build families while she rotted in eternal emptiness. The light showed her what she had become, and it wept for her. But more than that, it showed her what she could still be if she chose differently, if she let go of the poison she'd been drinking for centuries, hoping it would hurt someone else. The light didn't judge. It simply offered a choice, redemption, or a continuation of suffering. Morgana fell to her knees, the weight of centuries crashing down on her. She had built her entire existence on this hatred, on this jealousy, on this certainty that if she couldn't have joy, no one should. But this child, this impossible, pure-hearted child, had looked into the abyss of her soul and offered not judgment, but compassion. The light faded. Adrian swayed slightly, exhausted, but alive, unhurt. Morgana looked up at him through blood tears. Her carefully constructed mask had shattered completely. For the first time in 300 years, she felt something other than rage. She felt shame. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why show me kindness when I came to end your life?" Adrian's answer was simple, devastating in its purity, because everyone deserves a chance to be good. Morgana sat there stunned. She thought of all the years, all the bitterness, all the moments she had chosen cruelty over kindness, revenge over healing. She had blamed the world for her curse, had punished everyone within reach for a fate she didn't deserve. But this boy who should hate her, who had every right to destroy her, chose mercy. Something cracked inside her. Not her pride, not her armor, her chains. Her voice cracked. "I can't do this." She stood slowly, turned to face the hunters, the enforcers. "Stand down," she commanded. "My lady?" One of the enforcers stepped forward. "The council ordered." "I don't care what the council ordered." Morgana's voice was steel. "I will not be the monster who kills a child for the crime of existing. I will not become that." Her eyes swept across her forces. "Stand down." The enforcers looked at each other, uncertain. "The Sterling Line commands you," Morgana said. "Retreat, now, or face me as enemies." Slowly, reluctantly, they lowered their weapons. The hunters waited for a signal. When none came, they holstered their equipment and returned to the vehicles. Morgana turned back to Lucian. Her face was ravaged by tears, but there was something new in her expression, something that might have been hope. "I cannot stop the council. Marcus Thorne will not accept this. He will come for the boy eventually." "Let him," Lucian said. He moved to Adrian, scooping his exhausted son into his arms. "I will be ready." Morgana nodded. She looked at Adrian one last time. The boy was nearly asleep against his father's shoulder, but he managed a small smile at her, a smile that said, "I believe you can be better." "You are right, child," Morgana said quietly. "I am sad, and angry, and broken, but perhaps," she hesitated, the words unfamiliar on her tongue, "perhaps there is more to existence than suffering." She glanced at Elena, who stood with silver daggers still in her hands, ready to fight for her family. "I envied you," Morgana admitted, "not for stealing Lucian, but for having what I thought I could never possess. Love, family, purpose beyond power." She straightened her shoulders. "I was wrong to make you suffer for my pain. For what it's worth, I am sorry." Elena's expression softened slightly. "Then help us, when the council comes." Morgana was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "I will do what I can." She turned and walked away, her forces following. The SUVs drove off, leaving Thorngate battered but standing. Silence fell over the manor. Lucian held Adrian close, feeling the boy's syncopated heartbeat against his chest. Still alive, still his. Elena wrapped her arms around them both, and they stood together in the wreckage of their home. "Is it over?" she whispered. "For now," Lucian said. He carried Adrian upstairs. The boy was already asleep, drained by the power he had unleashed. Lucian laid him in the massive bed and sat beside him, watching his son's chest rise and fall. Elena sat on the other side. "What he did, that light." "I don't understand it," Lucian admitted. "The texts speak of Dampier having abilities, strength, speed, some mental powers, but this," he touched Adrian's forehead gently, "this was something else." "Love," Elena said softly. "That's what it was, pure love given form." Lucian looked at her, then at their son. She was right. 2 days later, a messenger arrived. Not an enforcer, just a courier, human, paid well to deliver a single envelope and leave immediately. Lucian opened it in his study. The letter was from the Elder Council, signed by all 5 members, including Marcus Thorne. It was brief. By unanimous decision, the Dampier child known as Adrian Blackthorne is hereby recognized as legitimate heir to the Blackthorn line. He is granted all rights and protections afforded to Nightborn nobility. Any who threaten him threaten the council itself. Further, Lord Lucian Blackthorn is commended for his restraint and mercy in the recent conflict. The Sterling line has withdrawn all claims and accusations. This matter is closed. A handwritten note was attached. Morgana's elegant script. I testified on your behalf, told them what the boy did, what he is. They were moved, as was I. May you find the happiness that has eluded me. M. Lucian read the letter 3 times. Then he laughed. It was a sound of pure relief, pure joy. Silas appeared in the doorway. Sir? We won, Lucian said, still laughing. Not through violence, not through fear, through the courage of a 4-year-old boy with a heart too pure for this dark world. He found Elena and Adrian in the garden. The boy was playing with toy cars in the shade, making engine noises. Lucian knelt beside him. Adrian, I have something to tell you. You're safe now. Officially. Forever. Adrian looked up. Does that mean the bad people won't come anymore? Not unless they want to answer to the most powerful vampires in the world. Cool. Adrian went back to his cars, as if being declared untouchable by an ancient council was just another Tuesday. Lucian shook his head in wonder. Then he sat in the grass, expensive suit and all, and played cards with his son. Elena watched them, smiling through happy tears. 5 years later, the gardens of Thorngate Manor had been transformed. No longer dark and gothic, they now bloomed with night-flowering jasmine, moon roses, and pale lilies that glowed under starlight. Lanterns hung from the trees, casting warm golden light across tables laden with cake and presents. It was Adrian's 9th birthday. The guest list was small but meaningful. A few children from the private school Lucian had enrolled Adrian in, human children who knew nothing of vampires but thought their friend was cool because he could only come over at night. Harris, the old groundskeeper, sat in a chair of honor, accepting wine from the few Nightborn guests. Representatives from sympathetic covens, allies who saw Adrian not as a threat but as hope. Even one of the council members had sent a gift, a silver pocket watch engraved with the Blackthorn crest. Adrian was tall for 9. His dark curls had grown longer. He wore tinted glasses now, specially designed to protect his sensitive eyes. He moved through the party with easy grace, thanking guests, laughing with friends. But there was Elena's warmth in him too, her kindness, her ability to see the best in everyone. Lucian stood on the terrace with Elena beside him, her hand in his. She wore a simple dress of deep blue. Her wedding ring caught the lantern light, that same diamond that had once destroyed her life, now a symbol of their triumph. They had married quietly 2 years ago, just the 3 of them, Silas and a human judge who owed Lucian favors, but it had been perfect. He's happy, Elena said softly, watching Adrian chase another boy around the garden. He's free, Lucian corrected. That's better than happy. Adrian stopped running and looked up at the terrace. He waved, his smile bright enough to rival the moon. Lucian waved back. A moment later, Adrian bounded up the stairs, breathless and grinning. Dad, Mom, watch this! He concentrated. The cake on the center table rose slowly into the air, spinning gently. The children gasped and applauded. Adrian lowered it carefully back to the table. Not a drop of frosting disturbed. Perfect control, Lucian praised. You've been practicing. Every day, just like you taught me? Adrian's expression grew more serious. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think someday I could try walking in real sunlight? Just for a minute? Lucian glanced at Elena. They had discussed this. The texts suggested that as Adrian aged, his tolerance might increase. By adulthood, he might manage brief exposure, but they wouldn't know until he tried. Not yet, son, Lucian said gently. Your body is still developing. We need to wait until you're stronger. But someday? Lucian knelt, bringing himself eye-level with his boy. Someday, yes, and when that day comes, I will stand beside you. We will face the sun together, Adrian grinned. Promise? Promise. The boy hugged him fiercely, then ran back to his party. Lucian stood reclaiming his place beside Elena. "Do you think he'll be able to?" she asked quietly. "Walk in sunlight? I don't know. The legends are vague, but whether he can or cannot, it doesn't matter. He is my son, and I will love him in shadow or light." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. Below them, the party continued. Laughter and music filled the garden. Life happened in all its messy, beautiful glory. Lucian looked out over his domain, the dark peaks surrounding Thorngate, the valley below where distant lights twinkled. He had lived for 1,000 years, had seen empires rise and crumble, had tasted every pleasure and pain the world offered, but until a few years ago he had never truly lived. He had simply existed, moving through time like a ghost, bored, alone, waiting for an end that would never come. Then a highway, a dying woman, a miraculous child, and suddenly existence had transformed into life. "Are you happy, my love?" Elena whispered. Lucian pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her, vanilla and rain and home. "I have you. I have Adrian. I have this moment, this night, this impossible family we've built from ashes and hope." He looked into her eyes, amber meeting crimson. "I am not just happy, Elena. I am complete." As the stars wheeled overhead, marking the passage of time that no longer frightened him, Lucian Blackthorn, Vampire King, Immortal Predator, Lord of Shadows, held his mortal wife and watched their miracle son laugh in the garden. And for the first time in 1,000 years, he understood what the poets had been writing about all along. This was what he had been missing, this connection, this anchor to something beyond himself. Not the weakness mortals claimed it to be, but the only magic that turned monsters into men, and men into legends. The night embraced Thorngate Manor in its ancient arms. The party continued, the children played, the music drifted on the wind, and in the darkness, a family found light. Not the harsh, burning light of the sun, but something gentler, more enduring, the light of